Je ne parlais pas très bien français, mais je vais y arriver. Hello, I'm Sean and I recently moved to France with my family and I'm currently learning French. I am by no means an expert at French, I'm a beginner, and in this video I'd like to talk about the process that I'm taking to learn French, some of the things that I'm doing, and some of the things that I find difficult. I have always found learning languages very difficult. I spent a long time learning some Chinese because my wife is Chinese and we speak it in the house with the children. I'm still not very good after many years of trying to learn it, so for me learning languages is not particularly easy. What I find disappointing though is that I did learn French when I was younger. When I was at school it was compulsory for us to learn French. I was lucky enough that when I was at primary school we had a teacher that was able to teach us some French for 3 years. In our secondary school it was compulsory for everybody from grades 1 to grades 4. So I did 4 years of French also at secondary school and I have very little to show for it, even after having passed all of the exams, and I actually achieved the top mark in my French exam. I think though, even with those 7 years of French that I feel like I have nothing to show for, when I'm learning French now, it's not completely foreign. There's many things during my lessons or during reading that I actually go, wait a minute, I do remember that. So I don't feel like I'm starting from zero. So I suppose this video is somewhat going to hold me accountable, because I really do hope that after a few years of living here my French will be a lot better. I would certainly like to be able to converse with people in French day to day. I mean, this is incredibly important when you come and live in a new country. It's also a very interesting language in terms of its rich culture and history, and a lot of the words that we have in English are taken from Old French. And I think for an English speaker this actually helps when you're learning French because of those roots. A lot of the words are similar or have similar roots, similar meanings. So what are some of the things that I'm doing to learn French? I don't think there's a right or wrong way when it comes to learning a language. There's different ways, and of course every person has a way that works best for them. The one thing that I'm not doing a lot of is using apps. For me, I don't particularly like using these apps. For example, Duolingo. It feels very much like a rewards-based system. It's constantly reminding you to come back. It's sending you notifications to come back. It's always trying to get you to upgrade to the next tier. The user experience is very good. The platform looks very nice. It's quite up to date and technically advanced, but I did try it right back at the beginning just to see what it was like. I just don't learn from it, to be honest. In the end it feels like you are focused on achieving the goal that it has set, whether that's 7-day streak or a 14-day streak or getting more stars or points or whatever it is. But this is not ultimately the goal that you have. The goal that you have is to learn a new language, not to have the app reward you for getting to the next tier or the next level. So I don't use a lot of apps. The one app I do use, and I call it an app, it could be on a cassette or a CD, if you still use those, is Pimsleur. For me, Pimsleur is a lot more effective because it's getting you to repeat all the time. Essentially what they're doing is they're introducing the language, but they're not teaching grammar. They're giving you words, they're giving you sentences, and you are then repeating those words and sentences. And very slowly it's introducing new vocabulary, new grammar concepts, although it doesn't explicitly describe and teach you those grammar concepts, but you are picking them up just through repetition, I suppose. I would add though, I think it makes sense to complement Pimsleur with the things that you're learning. I think if I wasn't learning grammar, for example, if I didn't understand what the passé composé was or I didn't understand what the imparfait was, then it would make it more difficult doing Pimsleur on its own in isolation, because you're hearing things, you're repeating them, and of course you understand them through the translation, but you don't understand what's behind it. And if you understand the grammar behind it, even just a little bit, then it makes it far more easier in the future when you want to construct sentences of your own. I am as well taking lessons, one-on-one lessons, online, which of course is very important. I have used a number of platforms to do this. The first one I used before I came to France was italki, because you can go on there and there's hundreds of French teachers. There are many teachers to choose from if you want to learn French, and of course many of these teachers offer free trial lessons to see if that teacher is compatible with you and if their teaching style is something that you like. At the moment I've switched to a different platform called Boozoo, and the only reason I've switched to that platform is because I now get some free lessons through my company. It's very similar. You go on, you pick a teacher, just like italki. My only issue is that with this platform I feel there's a lot less choice in terms of teachers, especially if you want to do it in the evening. For now I'll continue to use Boozoo. I have found a teacher that I quite like, and for now I'm really enjoying it. At the moment I'm trying to make these lessons more like a discussion and introducing grammar points, essentially practicing that grammar point during the lesson whilst trying to have a discussion about daily life. life, right? Because that's essentially what I want to achieve. I want to speak more, not just focusing on the grammar. I need to learn more vocabulary. I need to be able to bring it to the front of my mind quickly, because this is the biggest problem for me, is I can understand quite a bit now just through all the learning I've done. But if I'm asked a question and I try and answer that question, it's very difficult to bring all the words to mind. And then you end up making horrific mistakes. One of the mistakes I made when I was out and about was actually quite funny, and I'll cover that a bit later. I will have in 1 month's time an intensive course, and I'm really looking forward to that. I would like to get myself up to a standard before then, so I have 1 more month, so that I can make the most of that intensive course, because that intensive course is 5 days, 9 to 5, essentially speaking, using, reading, listening to French all day for the entire time. So you need to have a certain amount of French before you go there, otherwise it just doesn't make sense. So I will build up as much basic French as possible before then. But I will come back after I've done that course just to let you know what it was like. One of the other things that I do, and I think this is incredibly helpful for me, it might not be for everybody, but is to read as much as you can. Of course, I think you want to spend most of your time speaking it. However, reading I think is very, very helpful and can be very, very beneficial in learning a language, because you can also choose what you want to read. It can be something very interesting to you. Like, for example, I don't read the news because it's a bit too formal and it's not particularly interesting whilst I'm learning French. What I've found quite helpful, even at my level and even as an adult, are the kids' books. We bought many books for our children for learning French because I can also read it to them. Books like Julie and Sammy, which is very simple short stories that they are using, much like Oxford Reading Tree in the UK. These are for young kids learning to read French, learning to speak French. And they have all the basic vocabulary that you need, because these are stories about two kids doing different activities or seeing different things, whatever it may be. The other thing that I'm doing right now, and maybe this is not the best approach, but I quite enjoy it, is I bought Harry Potter and the Philosopher's Stone. So a book that I know and a book that I enjoyed when I was younger, obviously far more advanced than Sammy and Julie. And I'm just reading through that incredibly slowly, translating everything, almost every word. It's several hundred pages and I'm on page 3. It's taking me a long time to get through it because I'm having to go through all the sentences and translate them. It's a slow start, but I think eventually I will start to pick up the pace as I recognize more and more words, and maybe as towards the end of the book I will actually be reading 3 or 4 pages every night and not 3 or 4 pages a week. I'm not sure what you think about that. Maybe it's not the best approach. One of the nice things about France is that we've noticed these everywhere, whether it's in the supermarket or even in a local park, where you can essentially exchange free books. So you bring a book that you don't need anymore and you put it in here, and then you can take a book from here and read that one. Also a good way to learn French. Good idea, I think. And that brings me to the most effective way of learning a language, which is the most obvious thing, of course, is to just speak and to talk. If you're like me, that will be absolutely the most difficult thing for you to do, and it's not become any less easy. It's not become any less awkward. I constantly feel silly. I'm constantly making mistakes. I'm constantly locking up like a rabbit in the headlights. It's just a really awkward, uncomfortable situation to be in. And the thing is, to do it, you need to really push yourself. It's like jumping in the deep end, right? You go up to somebody and you just decide you're going to speak French. You're not going to speak English and you're going to try your hardest to do it. It never gets any easier. Often what you'll find yourself doing is, if you're going somewhere or you need something specific, you will practice the sentence that you need to say before you get there. And then one of two things can happen. Either you get it right and you say it really well, and the person you're speaking to will start to speak to you in French because they think, he speaks quite well. And then you don't understand anything of what they've just said to you, and you have to find yourself in a situation somewhere between feeling very good about yourself and then really, really awkward that you now cannot reply, and they are kind of looking at you, waiting for you to answer based on their initial interpretation that you could actually speak some French. The other way that it can usually go is that you completely mess it up. For example, one of the things that happened to me was that I was practicing a particular sentence because I was going to go and get my hair cut for the first time here in France. So I was practicing this sentence over and over again. Je voudrais me faire couper les cheveux. Je voudrais me faire couper les cheveux. But when I got there, I can't remember exactly what it was, but something along the lines of, est-ce que je peux couper mes chevaux? I don't know how I got cheval and cheveux mixed up, because cheval means horse. So I said something like, can I cut my horse? Which is a horrific mistake to make. Could be incredibly embarrassing. Maybe it's incredibly funny, but it certainly felt very embarrassing for me. But I suppose the positive thing about making these horrendous mistakes is that you never make them again. So if you are learning a new language, I completely sympathize with you, because it's so difficult. It doesn't matter what that language is, it's always going to be really hard. But I think the benefits far outweigh the difficulty that it's going to take getting through those initial stages. So for me, I don't use apps that much. Apart from Pimsleur, I try to read as much as I can, I try to listen as much as I can. Taking lessons, of course, I think is absolutely essential. And of course, those real life situations, talking as much as you can every day to anybody and everybody and making those mistakes and learning from them. Well, that's the way that I'm currently trying to learn this new language, and maybe you do it slightly differently. So I would like to hear from you if there's anything that you do to learn a new language. And if there are any tips or tricks that you can share them in the comments, and I'll try to respond.